I'm Steve Pleich, and I'll be your host for this evening's program on Voices from the Village. Tonight, we'll be talking about getting some hands-on, we'll be getting hands-on training as well on green solutions for everyday living. Anytime we try to control nature with the understanding that we can, it results in some real problems. Tonight we'll be talking about how we can take better control of our natural environment, about our nature, and tonight I have with me tonight to discuss that Bill Smallman. Bill, welcome, and Stephanie Sellers Sakasai. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Before we get into our discussion and look at this wonderful hands-on training we have and some music we'll have later, as we normally do, we go out on the street and we ask a question to the people in Santa Cruz. And let's see what they had to say.
All right.
Hi, this is Betsy Phillips with Voices from the Village Community TV. And today we're asking people, how much do you think the toxic chemicals in your cleaning products are affecting your health?
So chemicals in the environment, like in our household products, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the stuff, like Windex and everything, it really gets in the air, and it can cause birth defects. I've noticed, like, from hearing around and everything.
There's chemicals in your cleaning supplies, so watch what you use when you're cleaning, and keep it all natural and organic.
I do think that chemicals in our cleaning products might be affecting our health. I worry that there's not enough testing going on, and that most of the people making the decisions are probably making them based on their own economic good rather than the good of everybody in community.
Well, everything affects everything in one way or another. Depends on how toxic things are. We've been using cleaning products since cleaning products have been invented, and there haven't been severe cases that I know of cleaning product deaths.
No, I don't think that the chemicals are affecting our me or my environment. I think that the only way they affect us is that they make us look better and feel better in our community. So anyway, as far as cleaning products is concerned, so.
Are we ready? Number one. Okay, so not surprisingly, the people in Santa Cruz are extremely well educated and knowledgeable about, cleaning solvents, things like that they have, in their homes, and whether or not they feel they're really harmful kind of to their personal health. Stephanie, I was just fascinated in reading your website, and you have such a wonderfully rich history. Just take a few minutes and tell us about, about yourself and your history moving through to where you are kind of now.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, now I think I'm coined an eco-alchemist.
Yeah.
And I'm an artist, and when I first decided to become an artist, I realized that for me it was about empowering myself with nature and not using petrochemicals, which are so readily available. Right. And that sort of changed my life and my path, and I created a concept called Green Solutions for Everyday Living in 2004. Which is meant to empower people with nature's tools to take back their environment for a cleaner health and a better planet. Right. Or should I say a better health and a cleaner planet.
There you go.
Either way, we're so connected. It's all about the connection. If you think about it, when you are going to clean your oven, would you clean it with baking soda, something that you could then even drink or use, or would you clean it with a deadly toxin that you couldn't drink? And so that's where the connection comes. If we're really going to be sustainable and if we're really going to be independent from the 1%, then we really need to understand how to take back that power in our everyday decision-making process.
And if we get time, I'd really love to talk a little bit about the Alchemist Renaissance Organization, which is also on the website, just fascinating. But I'm sure that if we can, we get to that. Bill Smallman, Bill, welcome. You and I have a couple of things in common. One is our opposition to the desalination project, but another is that you ran for 5th District Board of Supervisors in 2012, and I, of course, ran for City Council in 2012. Give us a little bit of your background. I know that you're a civil engineer, you're a resident of Lompico, but you have a long-standing interest in the environment and watershed and that kind of thing.
That's correct. And I'm also a director for the Lompico Water District. And also, like Stephanie, I'm on the Valley Women's Club Environmental Committee.
Wonderful.
And I've really been interested in finding a solution to desal alternatives, and that's it. I think I developed a workshop on there's a local website, if you haven't heard of it. It's called www.civinomics.com.
Of course, yeah.
And
Robert Singleton and the folks over there. Yeah.
I have my own workshop on that, and it's basically the title of it is called "Creating a Great Alternative to Desal." And I'd really like to find a solution to that instead, and that's been my interest.
And that is really a very worthwhile kind of community dialogue website. They've created Robert Singleton and the folks over there, Robert, a good friend, and they have some wonderful pages and questions about the various issues that are challenging us both locally and regionally. So it's really worth your while to get onto that website and kind of get involved in the dialogue. One of the things that I was going to allude to in my introduction, really didn't get a chance to, was something that I noticed in some of the literature that was on your website, and that is about how big oil, big pharmaceuticals, big agriculture is kind of taking some of this, the ability to make our own decisions in green solutions out of our hands. Similar to what we went through with the Occupy Santa Cruz, where that big corporatist thing was the banks and the mortgage loan companies. But this is the similar thing about the corporatism of actually the green solutions that we would like to kind of take back ourselves. Tell us a little bit about that problem before we talk about then the solutions.
That's a really good point to bring up. Nowadays you can go out and you can buy a green product, but is it really green? You have to look and you have to be careful. A lot of the products that were formerly a small-owned company are now owned by larger corporations, and their ingredients change. One of the I don't know if we can mention particular ingredients, but one very common ingredient that Simple Green has changed its ingredients to a point that it actually is not within the California standards, Prop 65. It's really toxic. And so why would we want to be dumping that into our watershed? Everything that we use goes into our watershed. Of course, and if we don't, it runs off and gets wasted and goes into the ocean. So it is such a critical thing. So what do we do when we go to the market, when we want to look for something and we see, oh, it's natural, oh, it's green, oh, that's a nice forest scent, oh, lovely, but it's really not. The big lie is that it's unsustainable. It's from a petroleum coal tar molecule. Any synthetic scent or natural scent is actually quite toxic and does not biodegrade. It's a part of the plastic gyre in the ocean, just like all of the other things. So when you use a laundry rinse or something like that, and that lint that comes out of your dryer then becomes a part of a very important word we all need to learn and know more about: non-point source pollution.
Non-point source pollution.
That's when we indirectly pollute without really knowing it, or having it be such a subtle thing on a personal level, but then when everybody's doing it, it becomes a huge problem.
And it's fascinating. I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the various products that you have and the demonstrations you're going to make. But I think it's an example of something Bill and I were talking about earlier. Sometimes you can do the wrong things inadvertently for the right reasons. For instance, when we talk about desal alternatives, we talk about rainwater catchment systems and gray water recycling, but they also talk about in the city laundry to landscape. So you can water your garden through your laundry. Now, if you're not using the right the green solutions kind of for everyday living, you can be really harming the earth, harming that water that's going to eventually run off into our watersheds, into our ocean, become part of our water system. Bill, you have some experience, particularly with the watersheds and that. Tell us how really important that is to keep those sustainable and to keep those really working.
Yeah, I think I was talking to Stephanie earlier, and I think it was helpful for me to think of the solution as being one, either a site-specific, homeowner solution. The most exciting one lately has really been the great, like you mentioned, gray water systems. That could save a lot of water. And then the other side is what I've been really involved with is major infrastructure, things like large recycled water treatment plants, in that kind of thing. So it was helpful for me to kind of make that division. So I've been more involved with the more site-specific. There's a lot of issues of getting people to, either getting savings with their water district or incentives to actually install these systems. Right. I know a lot of, that's a whole separate issue. That, but I'm more prepared to talk about what my ideas were for the commercial side.
And I think anybody who really wants to know more about that, as I mentioned at the start of the show, you ran for 5th District Supervisor in 2012. You have a wonderful YouTube that was part of your campaign, out of the red into the green, which is a terrific, kind of a landscape of, what we're doing, how we're going to develop economically and yet still protect our environment. So I thought that's a really wonderfully expressive and informational thing that people can go to and say, well, I think Bill knows what he's talking about, but I'm interested in what he's talking about, And that's something that they should know. And you and I, of course, as I was also mentioning earlier, worked against, to the extent we could, the desalination project. And even though now that's been taken off the table, ostensibly by the City Council for further review, it doesn't mean that you stop looking at the conservation measures, the alternative measures. Steph and I were talking about, during our first meeting, the potential of wastewater recycling. Getting very close to something we can actually have, tertiary treated wastewater, and come back into our water system. Tell us a little bit more about that, if you could.
Oh, actually, it's kind of exciting. It's something I discovered Arcadia has been doing for quite a long time. And Bill could definitely elaborate on the engineering side of this. I'm just going to have simple layman terms here.
Okay.
But what's exciting is that, similar to nature, you can mirror nature in its biofiltration systems and recycle your water to the point that you can drink it. And this is our wastewater, the water that we call effluent. Usually the water companies, the big water companies, will take, huge amounts of water that's untreated and they dump it into, for irrigating fields of commercial crops. And this is definitely not a sustainable way of treating water or dumping water. But a biofiltration system using marshes and diverse plants and estuaries and other recycling systems, even with oxygenation, as opposed to toxic chemicals and chlorine. And you come out with this really amazing water, and water that you can drink that's reclaimable and is not just being dumped into the ocean. And another really important thing, since we are talking about water and site-specific, we want to preserve our watershed. Right now, our watershed is dwindling desperately. And why? The rainwater doesn't go back to the ground. So how do we get that water back to the ground is so crucial in our planning as a community and as a county to not only infiltrate water harvesting systems and gray water systems and desalination, but to also start mandating permeable surfacing so that we're not wasting all of this precious water that's being run off into the ocean with a lot of other nasty chemicals from the road.
And that's really such an important point. And we had a guest not too long ago that was talking about the permeability of surfaces and things like that, and how that affects our water. One of the things that Bill and I were talking about also in terms of desalination was my idea that when we took the money that was in surplus for our water department, it was about $40 million that they have. It was going to be partially in payment of the desalination plant that was going to cost about $130 million. That money now can be used for what I would like to see kind of a local conservation corps. And that local conservation corps could go out and rehabilitate our watersheds so they'd be much more efficient, so that we would actually have more water coming down through the watersheds. Bill, tell us a little bit more of the practical aspect of that kind of thing.
Oh, well, my whole concentration was to try to find an alternative plan to desal. Absolutely our watershed, there's a lot of thing, and part of my plan really was to collect stormwater. I'm interested in the water that flows into the ocean that the fish really don't, the high storm flows. And it's filled with a lot of silt from erosion that we should try to mitigate. And also it's filled with a lot of septic leach water that comes from the thing, which we also, all that water, the erosion and this problem are big environmental things that we can correct. Yeah. And don't ever underestimate the amount of water that we dump into the ocean is over 3 times the amount of the proposed desal plant. And that's filled with pathogens, and it has a huge impact. When we have the chance to treat this water, basically my interest was to construct an advanced water treatment plant. It uses the same technology as desal with reverse osmosis. But you'd be surprised, actually, that the tertiary treated sewer water has much less chemical solids than salt water. And salt water, the seawater, actually has a lot of organic chemicals as well. And so anyway, we can take this water out. I don't believe that people will agree to direct potable reuse. That's actually using this water, although I've been told that this water is drinkable. I prefer the indirect potable reuse, and that's why I felt to design a pipeline down the railroad corridor to build it, and it would help pay for making a bike path and then installing injection wells along that. So it's win-win a lot of ways. One, you end your pollution into the ocean from this sewer water. 2, you're building a saltwater intrusion barrier because the railroad corridor conveniently falls along the coast. And finally, it'll help also pay for the bike path as well. So that's why I kind of was.
And we were talking about that earlier about what a wonderful idea the rail trail is, but how financially impractical at this point in time it is because of the state budget shortfalls and things like that. We really need quite a bit of money to be able to do that. So there's an economic development component, but also an environmental protection component. And one other thing I'll mention is that during the desal battle that raged for a long time, I would go to the Water Department and the Water Commission, the desal task force, and tell them, well, the city has what they call a stormwater management plan, but it doesn't manage any of the stormwater. All it does is make sure that it runs off. So all this water that we're losing from the stormwater runoff, which, as you say, the desal plant was going to produce 2.5 million gallons of water per day. From 6.5 seawater, 2.5 of fresh water. And 3 times as much water washes down during any particular stormwater season that we don't recapture at all. Another thing they told me is, well, we can't recapture this because we have no excess storage capacity. And I said, well, how about lining some of the quarries on the North Coast and do that? And that was my suggestion to them. So, no, it's impractical. We can't do that.
But we have our natural storage capacity right underneath the ground. It's called our water table.
Yeah, well, but my plan was really divided into 2 groups. One was using the recycle, which averages 8.4 million gallons a day. So I figured, okay, but then they could supply about 7.5 million gallons a day.
That's about a 3-to-1 ratio. Exactly right. Yeah.
Building the bike path with injection wells, but it would also have the option of a lot of big recycled water services. There's two golf courses, Cabrillo College. And then also we could build fire hydrants, but then pipe the water all the way down to Watsonville where they could also use it down there. But the other part of my plan was to collect stormwater out of the San Lorenzo River and build reservoirs at the sand quarries. And those reservoirs anyway, to create them, it's probably, out of all the environmental impacts in my plan, that one has the most, but it's much better than building a reservoir as they planned in the Zayani Canyon and building it because you're destroying a lot of the fish habitat. These are scarred pieces of land that I think would be helpful to have this place where we could put this water and treat it. It's going to be heavily laden with silt, yes, but it's less expensive, I believe, than treating salt water.
There's one question that I had, and that is to what extent does our current water filtration systems filter out the toxins that we're talking about, the problems we're talking about? Before we move to the solutions, how much does our current filtration system actually neutralize that as it goes through the system and come out as tertiary treated water that we're actually drinking?
I don't really think it's that much. There's a lot of contaminants in the water if you think about it, from the standard the standard process that happens. And that's why if you look at your water bill, you're going to see, by law, it's required to note all of the different heavy metals and poisons that are in there. But even that's only a minute portion of what's actually in the water. And the chemicals that they use to treat it, as well as things like prescriptions. If people dump their pharmaceutical drugs down the toilet, that's going to end up coming out of the water that you drink from your tap. And heaven forbid should fracking ever become an issue,
and we're had
really
shows
in trouble then.
Here on fracking, as we're as concerned about that as anyone. One of the joys of doing this kind of a show is it is live and it is call-in. So if anybody's out there has a question for Stephanie or Bill, please call us at 425-8844, 425-8844, and we can try to answer to the best of our abilities your questions. So I think we're beginning to cover some of the problems, some of where we are. How about a little sanitizer demonstration here? How about that?
That sounds really great. And speaking of gray water and doing things that are healthy for your water system, there's nothing like making your own sanitizer, I tell you.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is a first for me. So I think this is truly interactive and wonderful.
I really think it's critical. It's a combination of, at your home, not polluting the watershed and
Bill,
with products.
Help yourself, gentlemen.
Okay,
thank you so much.
These are two different kinds that I've made earlier today. You can make a hand sanitizer pretty much with about anything.
We should spray this on our hands?
You can spray it on your hands. You can also spray it on your face, but I wouldn't get it on your glasses because it's harder to see. That can be an issue.
Okay, Stephanie, please.
So what we're doing is we're using the good old-fashioned hand sanitizer that's been around for hundreds of years. Witch hazel, which has a 14% alcohol content. It's soothing to the skin and it helps with inflammation as well. It's a great medium and a vessel for a few more herbal ingredients to have a completely antibacterial process. So I forgot my funnel today. So silly, but I think I'll be okay without the funnel. So I'm going to be filling this up about 2/3 full with witch hazel. And then once that's about full, you can hear the lovely sounds. It's almost like I'm going under the ocean. But as this fills, I'm going to be adding only one drop of grapefruit seed extract, which is a really big bonus and a plus. You don't have to have these extra things, but what's so wonderful these days is with all the flus and the buggies that are going around, to have an excellent antimicrobial and antibacterial that you can get by the drop that's completely scent-free is of great benefit. It's made basically with organic grapefruit seeds, concentrate, and it's fused in glycerin. Wonderful. And it's something you can get at your local stores. I wouldn't suggest you make it yourself. It's a very, very long process, although you can make something with grapefruit peels, seeds, and vinegar, and make a lovely bitter that you can use for both cleaning and for medicine.
So this is just a process that you're showing us.
Exactly.
The combination of things that are readily available from just about any source. So it's not necessarily the green solutions that
you don't have to be an alchemist to and make your own tincture.
Okay, well,
you can go to the health food store and you can get some wonderful tinctures. I kind of like the idea of the alchemist, but so again, I'm only using 1, 2, 3 drops, a very small amount of a tincture, which I'm increasing just by a minute amount for this sanitizer. And then I'm going to fill it for the rest of the 1/3 full. And of course, this is TV, so I'm pretending it's really full. So, no, it's almost full, but we won't wait for the whole time for it to get full. So what we do. Now, you can use an aluminum-free bottle. You can use a dark glass bottle and get a spray attachment. But what's nice about this is it's handy. You can keep it in your purse and you can keep it around. And again, keeping with the green theme, if you have a handkerchief, get back into handkerchiefs or cut up an old kitchen towel and have some pieces handy so you don't have to use paper towels to dry. But just a simple squirt is all that you need. And you can also use it on your area if you're speaking in public, if you're going into areas where there are a lot of people with a lot of germs or you're immune compromised. You can use this around your upper lymph node areas. Your mouth and your nose are the gateway for germs, so you can just spray away.
Wow.
And relax and enjoy it. It's quite nice. We'll pass it around for everybody later. And that's basically the demonstration. So what choices that you would use to put in it is really up to you. And some really important things to think about are antibacterial and antimicrobial herbs. So rosemary, lavender, thyme, tinctures are wonderful. For essential oils, I would suggest tea tree, rose geranium, also again lavender. I would suggest lime for a citrus scent, not citrus oils, but only lime. And why is that? Because other citrus oils are photosensitive, where lime doesn't have the same chemical constituents as the orange oils. And the grapefruit oils, which you can get sensitive when you're in the sun. So these are subtle things, but they're important things to know. And that's why I started Green Solutions.
Now, Green Solutions for everyday living. Now you also offer some ideas about cleaning solvents and things of that nature. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, living in the mountains, we are always succumb to things like mold, especially black mold. It's a
have any mold in Lompico?
Really?
Okay, well, there you go.
How's Santa Cruz with mold these days?
Consensus around the table. I think there's probably some mold, So this should be of interest to everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, I live in Santa Cruz.
So, I came to Santa Cruz in 1994, and I had 6 wonderful years in Japan where I learned how to live without the nasty chemicals that we use here because they're simply banned and not allowed in many other countries. And one of the things I discovered when I was here is getting back to my native roots and herbs, and I discovered that I had a problem with black mold like everybody else, and I needed to get rid of this. And so I just put my noggin together and I said, okay, these are some very important herbs. They work really well for this and this and that. They're going to work for this possibly. Let's give it a try. So my first try was boiling rosemary twigs for 20 minutes. You would make a solution in water, boil that down, and then I used the essential oil of thyme and prepared a nice liquid to wash down and then use as a spray later. So I eliminated the black mold. It didn't come back. I've been using this since 1996, 1995, with great success, and many others have as well. It's the combination of rosemary and thyme and how they work to kill mold together that's really nice. You can use other oils as well, orange and thyme, but particularly these work very well for black mold. And I found what's really awesome about green ingredients, and especially these kinds of things, is that when you use it, you're not getting rid of the good bacteria. There's always a certain amount of good bacteria everywhere.
Bacteria makes the world go round.
It's abundant, yes, and it's wonderful stuff. And if we can really respect that and maintain that, then the bad bacteria has a harder time to grow. So,
and I think it's interesting to mention that you're talking about Japan, where they have banned these types of chemicals, where there's a cultural, governmental, movement toward, protecting people from these various things. And here, yet in the United States, when we have really such a big oil, big pharmaceutical, big agriculture influence on everything that we do, and it doesn't really, it permeates all of society. It's unfortunate that we have to take strong measures to try to reverse that paradigm somehow, whereas, other nations more enlightened in certain ways have already taken those steps to do that. What advice would you give people here in Santa Cruz to try to reverse that paradigm, to try to get us moving toward a true green solution and away from kind of the corporatist influence that really has fostered this kind of thing? My dream is that someday, very soon, we will ban the use of pesticides, garden pesticides, and synthetic fertilizers. These things are so detrimental to our environment. We live in the most amazing area. We live in a rainforest, and our soil is highly erosive, it's very sensitive,
And the best thing that we can do is to muster up our amazing grassroots power, because nothing happens from the top down. It always happens from the bottom up.
Right.
And it's people getting together and saying, hey, oh my gosh, you know, I'm not going to use that Roundup, even though it's on sale. I'm not going to use it. I'm just going to stop. Let me go for the dishwashing soap that doesn't have so many chemicals in it that I can't use it for my beneficial garden cleaner. Let's go for the things that are sustainable and educate ourselves. And the first thing is to really take a look and stop using the pesticides and the synthetic fertilizers.
And Bill, your observations on the use of synthetic fertilizers and pesticides and the like?
And one thing that I think is really, really exciting is you know, the fish habitat has really been, we really do have a chance with, you know, pollution's a big factor on that. And I think it's all a multitude of things that we need to do, and it's really exciting that we really can restore the fish habitat. And I try to incorporate that a lot with, you know, desal alternatives.
Of course, yeah.
And site-specific, you know, speaking again about site-specific things, one of the things that I think is so exciting, what we can do, all of us, even before the rains right now, take a look at your area around you. Is there bare dirt? Is there an area that doesn't have planting?
Right.
That would be a place to start planting, to think about erosion control. Where does my water run down? What things are running with that? How can I preserve the area around me? That's huge. And making dirt, lots and lots of dirt.
Of course. And it is, that you point out, has to be really a grassroots movement. As Bill knows, when it was first suggested in 2005, the city of Santa Cruz told the water department, you build us a desalination plant as a supplemental water supply. And that train went down the track until about 2009, 2010, when people in a grassroots movement, you know, rose up all around town and said, you know, we want to look at desal alternatives before we spend this money, before we, you know, there's this very energy-intensive, you know, carbon developing, you know, plant is going to be built. We want to know more about it. We want to know whether there's things we can do. And the people at Rick Longinati and Paul Gratz and those folks and myself organized with not only desal alternatives but the Right to Vote on Desal coalition, and gathered 8,800 signatures amongst people in Santa Cruz, put Measure P on the ballot, and now they have a right to vote on the construction of a desalination plant when and if it ever gets to be shovel ready, when they've you know, approved the EIR and things like the environmental impact report. So that is the beauty and the value of real grassroots organization, real grassroots movement. I know, Bill, you've been involved with those things yourself, you know, over time.
Yeah, that's correct, and I felt that, you know, they did the ER, part of doing the ER for the desal was to look at the alternatives, but in my opinion, they didn't give the alternatives a fair enough shot. I think, and I really do believe, you know, with the things that Stephanie and I have been talking about tonight, that the alternatives are real. They offer some real benefits over desal, and so I'm sticking with them, and I'm going to try to, you know.
And I think it's interesting that although I had been intimately involved in that process for a long period of time and thought myself fairly knowledgeable about some of the desal alternatives and some of the aspects of this, you know, sustaining our water supply, the things I'm learning here tonight, you know, are even more edifying to me in terms of things we can do. And not only we can do those things, and we can be green, we can be safe, we can be non-toxic, you know, we can preserve our environment. And that's the beauty of what we're talking about here, because it is really a synergistic kind of a thing. Tell us more about green solutions for everyday living, as long as we have some time, and kind of where you're going, where you are now, where you're going to go in the future, and what really you're going to be offering the community over and above our conversation here tonight, and then moving into the future, because I know you are a concerned community member, and this is something you're offering lovingly to the community as something that you believe in very strongly.
Thank you, yes, and I'm honored to do this. I'm really thankful to be able to walk this path, and I'm really glad to be a part of Santa Cruz now since 1994. It's been awesome. So Green Solutions has come a long way. It's a grassroots kind of a thing, and the very next step for Green Solutions is we're going to be having a watershed symposium Green Solutions Watershed Symposium on November the 2nd at the Felton Community Hall.
Wonderful.
It's a free event from 1 to 5. And this is really exciting because in 2005, the Valley Women's Club Environmental Committee supported me in doing this. After doing it for just a year, they came in and they've been helping in making this happen. And since 2005, I've given free community workshops teaching people how to use these materials, how to empower themselves with nature's tools, answer questions, and make household things that are really important, like making your own non-toxic, eco-beneficial flea powder, and you know, dry.
You didn't bring any of that today, did you?
Yes,
well, okay, well, we'll take a look at that in a few moments.
All those little things down there.
Okay, well, maybe we'll take a little tour of that at some point.
Yes, and how to deal with the problems of lice and nasty bugs without having to go buy these toxic chemicals. How to just use tea tree and conditioner and putting it together, or coconut oil or neem. Alternatives are very important, and they change a lot. And there are a lot of wonderful alternatives out there. So Green Solutions focuses on alternatives that are, number one, multi-purposeful. And they're combined for designed specifically for use, continual use. So some essential oils you wouldn't want to use continually. Also, Green Solutions is designed so that you don't have to just use essential oils. You learn about the herb, the plant, the ingredient, and the many different ways that you can use it, between boiling down your herbs to a reduction to make a household cleaner, or to make a cold syrup, for instance. So where Green Solutions is going next is we have the second PDF booklet, which will be coming out very soon. Before
and I read the one that was on the
Symposium.
website, of
That's
course,
the
as any well-informed host would do. So
yes, thank you so much. Yes, there's on the site of Alchemist Renaissance Organization, arrowbydesign.org, you can download the free PDF booklet, and that has it's kind of a miniature of recipes and a little educational table on the various things that you would use, and its historical uses as well.
And a very interesting, fun story to read. You know, it's very it's very well written, I thought, and it's educational, but it's, you know, it still kind of captures your imagination and your interest. You know. We're thinking locally here, and I think it's important to think locally and our focus be local so that we can organize on a grassroots level and do things. But if we step back for a moment, and I know that, Bill, during your campaign, you were very much an advocate for California Forward and that kind of thing. You know, or at least you had mentioned that, you know, in some of your campaign literature. On a statewide level, you know, what is it that we can do? Where are we going? Are there any new initiatives that we should be aware of, you know, to kind of take us from where we are now and this dependence on toxic-laden cleaners and solvents and this kind of thing, and maybe move away from that a little bit?
Well, it's really critical because, you know, all that's, it does, you know, the water, it gets into into your water system. So it's, and you know, the products actually they're not only work better, but your exposure to them, you know, we're part of the environment, so your exposure to these are much more healthy. As far as I don't know, that California Forward, when I started my campaign, I still really don't know too much about it, though. I had the idea that, you know, I not only wanted to be concerned about the environment, but the economy as well. So, but, you know, we can incorporate these green products, I think, with the economy, and I think there'll be more of a demand for them when people become a little bit more educated on them, and the fact that if they're around your household, not only they're healthy, it makes far more healthy environment in your home. But the bottom line, the stuff's not going down into the river, affecting the environment, the fish, etc. Our water, and like I said, all those desal alternatives was all about collecting water for drinking water. So there's a motivation to stop erosion and silt pollution because we can get that water back and use it for our use without having any chemicals that we have to take out of it.
You know, I think the real growth happens when we kind of go back to our roots, going back to where we were 100 years ago. You know, how can we fuse and balance that? How can we? 100 years ago, we didn't have to go to the store to buy a toilet cleaner or to buy particular products or heaven forbid, dishwashing detergent. You know, people made it themselves. So these days, in our industrial economy, where we're slaves to the dollar, where do we find that balance? And I think that starts individually, and that's where the power, the grassroots power comes in. You know, how can I balance my dollar? How can I be so simple that I'm being sustainable with the things that I use and the choices that I make, and still go out there and do the work that I do, or do the work that I'm looking to do. So that's really where I think the balance comes in. And there isn't enough legislation out there, and we don't have any moratoriums out there, and we're really not thinking about the pesticides that we use in this county and the quality of our soil. And if we look at just something so simple as that and just started to focus on that, then we would make a difference. But if we look to the big guys, it's not going to happen, because the profit margin isn't big enough for them to be enticed.
And unfortunately, as Bill knows, and as I know all too well, because we're so agriculturally based in Santa Cruz County, particularly in South County, that's really the tail that wags the dog. And so the big agribusiness is going to determine whether or not you're able to use, some of these pesticides and toxins and things like that. Has that been your experience, Bill, as well?
I think so, and it's a difficult problem to big business is going to kind of run the show unless without this grassroots kind of activism.
Yeah, we really need to support what we have out there existing already. We do have a lot of laws, and the new California CEQA Act for the environment is huge. Those protections and everything is kind of in place. So where do we go from here to start it? That's
something that Bill and I were discussing, in fact, informally before the show, was that with the CEQA reform that is in the legislature at this time, they're seeking more of a balance between economic development and environmental protection, so that you can still have economic development, but you can still not completely run over every tree you see in order to make sure people have dollars in their pockets, and that's an important balance to try to maintain.
I think it's a very fine line to walk. Sometimes you hear about things that are stopping economic things that aren't really harmful for the environment. On the same time, they do stop various things, and it's just a real difficult fine line to walk. But
I think from on a county level, we are an agricultural county, yes, but the bottom line comes down to each individual. And if you look at the statistics and the use, just thinking about the logical part of this is a professional commercial farm is going to be pretty conservative about what they're using, because that's money, that's business, that's what it is. But a resident can go to the local store and buy a huge amount of toxic chemicals, and they want to do the best that they can to make their garden really pretty. So they might use more than what is required. And not only are they using it, but everybody in the neighborhood is using it. So then you wonder why there are no fish, why there are no mayflies for the fish to eat.
And I think as a model of activism, you can look and see that even though we are an intensely agricultural economy here in Santa Cruz County, there's a vibrant GMO-free organization. And so they're working hard, and they're trying to get moratoria, and they're trying to get legislation, and they are really getting some traction on this. Even in the face of the agribusiness that does not necessarily want to go away from genetically modified organisms, to increase their yields and to make more money and that kind of thing. So it's a wonderful activist model, I think, for people like Green Solutions, to take that and say, well, if they can do it, we can also mobilize and get people interested in this and really get some traction on these issues.
I thought it was, recently, my wife and I had she passed away, but she had an organic farm up in Mariposa, and we were talking about Roundup, and everybody said, oh, well, Roundup's perfectly safe, and everybody everybody used that stuff for like crazy. Oh, it's not really a chemical. It does this, blah blah blah. Yeah. So I mean, it's obviously it's a widespread use.
Of course,
and she
very
just
well known.
said no, it kills stuff. It can't be. And that recently they found out now after a long time that it's really not a capiche chemical to be spraying all over the place. So it's kind of the power of the big corporations can put that kind of cloud of thinking. You know what I mean? On a particular product, advertising.
It's all in
they
the
have
advertising.
To do so.
Well, that's right.
And the manipulation of our emotion. So if you can just kind of, stop that process from happening when you watch your TV. Enjoy the community TVs without too many commercials.
Right. And it's difficult, I think, in the absence of the kind of symposia that you were talking about, to really be able to make some progress in that. I know that when they had Prop 37 was on the ballot recently for the GMO free labeling, that was defeated because Monsanto came in and spent a good deal of money. But what they said was, if you pass this legislation, this proposition, it's going to cost you $400 more a year for your grocery bill. And they reached into people's pockets and they said, we can't afford that. I'm sorry. We'd love to have this genetically modified warning, but we just can't afford it. So they preyed on people's insecurities about them able to put food on their table at all. And that's the kind of thing that you
such a shame.
You have to combat.
It is. It's really a shame. And if you look at the true economics, the sustainable economics, when people are eating food that gives them no nutrition, and they're starving themselves, getting fat. Right. They're dying. This is a huge medical burden. Right. This in no way is sustainable. I think if we just kind of look at the way that we balance our economics and we shift it in a way that really sees clearly, what is sustainable and what is not, then we can proceed forward. And I think in a very balanced way and preserve our area. We're going to have some hard times if we don't.
Yeah. Bill?
I think part of the solution is really to support some of the smaller, organic farmers.
Yes.
You can't let, really big corporate farms. And actually, history shows us that to have this one farm's growing this, have more diverse farms that are organic, that don't have this big,
monocropping. No,
you don't need to do genetic modification. Nature will do it for you, and people grow different types of things instead of having the one big farm that has the tomato that will grow the perfect plastic tomato, and that it'll survive all the bugs. But what they'll find out, all of a sudden, the bug will eat that tomato, and all that tomato will be all gone. And when at the same time, if you had a bunch of small farms that had all these different types, it would have been way better.
And again, by analogy, what we need to have is things like green solutions for everyday living. Where people will be able to start and have that as an alternative and say, I would really like to turn away from these toxins that, are costing me too much money or detrimental to my health and bad for my family, and yet I want to be able to do this and be able to have it, be green and everyday and useful. That's the kind of thing we need to have. And that's why we're talking about this now, to let people know that there are these ideas out there. There are these alternatives out here. And Santa Cruz County is a wonderful place for that kind of education, to really have an effect on people and open their eyes about that and say, what, I'll start with that today. Let me get on the website for Green Solutions for Everyday Living, and I'll use that hand sanitizer, I'll use the flea product, I'll use these various things, and not use this other. And that little incremental change, is what starts that. Yeah.
Yes. That's our power, has taken it back, and we can do so much with that once we've cleared that space as a collective, as a community, as human beings. Our change can happen so quickly. It really can. So there's always hope.
Yeah, well, why don't you tell us just a little bit about what you have down here in the few minutes we have left, and then you're going to sing a song for us, which is going to be wonderful. So maybe you can just refer to a couple of these things, and we can take a look at.
Why don't I go ahead and bring a few up to the table.
Yeah, please. There we go. All right, here's one.
A fun little thing. Now that's not something. This is something that we wouldn't necessarily make at a Green Solutions thing, but it's something that I would teach you how to make at home. And this is, I call it the Buggers Away spray. It's a combination of herbs and essential oils and other things, a whole host of things, if you wanted to look at the ingredients down below. But this is why I call it all-purpose, is because it's not only a sanitizer, but it's a bug spray, meaning it will keep the bugs away from you when you're camping. This is the alternative to DEET, that nasty, nasty, terrible, terrible thing that's not really good for you. And I really don't see how it helps much with the mosquitoes either, because they build up an immunity to it, and then the mosquitoes become more strong and more toxic. So that's something to think about. Always, what are the issues that we run into that we need? Now that is an eco-beneficial cleaner.
You can see that.
And that's basically baking soda and therapeutic grade essential oils. This one is with rosemary and thyme for black mold. I have another one down there which I blend with sweet orange and tea tree. And I use that combination because it's just a nice smell, as well as it helps to keep the ants away from the house. And it's antibacterial, antimicrobial, many, many benefits. Another thing, since school's coming up, and when your immune system's a little down and there's so much stress going on at the beginning of school, sometimes things happen and there's a lice outbreak. There are situations like that. So what in the world would you use for something like that?
What you may ask, and the answer is going to be?
The answer is going to be, if you have a nice conditioner at home and you can get a therapeutic grade essential oil, a pure essential oil in a dark colored bottle of tea tree, Melaleuca alternifolia, you can use exactly 1 tablespoon.
Everybody in the audience say that 3 times rapidly.
Yes. So basically, tea tree in your conditioner. And leaving it on your head for 15 to 20 minutes and rinsing it. Kills the lice, it's refreshing, it smells pleasant, it's good for the skin. And it's cheap. It's cheaper. You can, and the important thing is when you're doing this, you're going to also need to take care of the beddings, the clothing. So you can take that same bottle of tea tree and use it for in the wash. You'd want to put it in the wash to kill the bugs in the bedding. Other things around, if you don't have any of this, things that they've used in cultures past, mustard seed oil, coconut oil, and neem seed oil are things that you could also just rub on and keep on the head again for 20 or 30 minutes, but it's not as pleasant and it's harder to get rid of than a conditioner and an essential oil.
This has been wonderful. I've so much enjoyed talking to both of you, Stephanie and Bill, about the very complex but very essential relationships we have between ourselves and between nature. And we do have about 4 minutes left, and Stephanie is going to sing a song for us. So whilst Tricia gets ready to do that, I don't know how production-wise we're going to do it, but Stephanie, if you will do whatever you need to do to get yourself ready to sing a song, Bill and I will sit here and be your faithful and attentive audience. So go right ahead and do that.
Well, thank you. I chose this song because it's really special. It's special to me. When I came to Santa Cruz, I'm in this beautiful redwood forest, and we have all of these amazing parks. And it's so nice that we have more parks than parking lots.
Okay, please. Yes. There we go. So Bill and I will, we could probably recite some lines of poetry. Have you got any favorite things from Emily Bronte or...
I'm an engineer.
Okay, he's an engineer. I'm a lawyer. We don't have anything to entertain you with. I'm sorry, folks. So we're gonna have to wait for the music to start. Okay, all right.
Okay, let's see here. We're gonna go.
So a wonderful thing about live television is you just can't beat it.
That's for sure. We gotta find that pick though.
Pick. Bill, did you bring your guitar picks?
No.
Oh,
there we go.
I'm a wannabe guitar player.
We're set.
Here we go.
Have a pick. There we go. I don't think we'll need that. Oh my goodness. Oh.
paved paradise and put up a parking lot with a pink hotel, a boutique and a swinging hot spot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. They cut all the trees and put them in a tree museum. And they charged all the people $1.50 just to see them. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. Hey, farmer, farmer, put away that DDT now. Leave my spots on the apples, but give me the birds and the bees. Please, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. And then late last night, I heard the screen door slam, and a big yellow taxi took away my old man. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. I said now, they paved paradise and put up a parking lot. Oh yeah. They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay. All righty then. This has been a wonderful show. Thank you so much. On behalf of Charlie Phillips, our producer, and Betsy, and really the crew behind the cameras and in the engineering room that really make this happen, thanks to Bill Smallman, Stephanie Sellers Sakasai, and really thank you all for tuning in and keep this conversation going. This is Steve Pleich saying good night, and thanks for watching Voices from the Village. Anyway, wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah, you did fine.